And thank you for joining me today. I hope that everyone had a good, albeit different, Thanksgiving holiday weekend. As I've had time to think and reflect on the many things that I am grateful for, particularly this year, some things immediately stood out to me. The first thing was that the 2020 hurricane season came to an end yesterday. The most active Atlantic hurricane season on record, and the 7th costliest. In addition, it was the 5th consecutive above-average Atlantic hurricane season from 2016 onward through the first extremely active season since 2017. There was a record-breaking 30 named storms and 12 landfalling storms in the continental United States. 12 named storms made landfall across 7 states this year: Bertha, Cristobal, Faye, Hannah, Isaias, Laura, Marco, Sally, Beta, Delta, Ada, and Zeta. Despite devastation around us and a Gulf Coast that was hammered this year, Savannah was not even seriously threatened, and I am grateful and thankful for that. Secondly, despite the many beloved and dear lives that have been lost due to COVID this year, there are, admittedly, many more people who have recovered and are recovering, and I am thankful for that. And I remain grateful for those healthcare professionals and other essential workers, to include members of our press, who continue to serve despite the most extenuating of circumstances, and I'm also grateful for that as well. Today is World AIDS Day. Launched in 1988 and observed on December 1st of each year, it aims to promote awareness, decrease stigma, and advocate for an end to HIV. In recognition, I am wearing a red ribbon, the universal symbol of awareness and support for people living with HIV. It's important for you to know your status by getting tested. The First City Pride Center is offering free testing today from noon to 5 at their office, 1515 Bull Street. And HIV testing is always free to Coastal Health District and all of the health district departments in Bryan, Camden, Chatham, Effingham, Glen, Liberty, Long, and McIntosh counties. I remember a time when HIV meant a death sentence. Now people are living full lives with HIV and AIDS. But it's important to know your status so that you can get the health care that is necessary to live your best life. Beyond that, we also take the time to recognize those who lived among us, who are no longer with us, but yet their memories remain with us. This weekend, I was discouraged, frustrated, and honestly appalled by the lack of mask and social distancing I saw in our city. The blatant disregard for the health and safety of others was on full display at several big events, especially downtown. There were giant crowds and relatively very few people wearing masks. I personally was downtown this weekend, personally witnessed this behavior at Plant Riverside, where there were hundreds, if not thousands of people at an event that was publicly advertised, with no real social distancing. The city owns the right-of-ways and the park, and we will more aggressively regulate the activities in those areas. I've made it abundantly clear to the city manager and to Team Savannah that we are dissatisfied and that we're living in a pandemic. We have done relatively so well, and it's unfortunate that, I mean, I get it, I understand the fatigue, but the fact is there's still a pandemic out there. So expect a full-press city response, an overwhelming city response. To that end, the city manager and I, executive staff, Team Savannah, will be personally patrolling these areas on weekends. We will have executive members of our team on duty on the weekends because I want them to see what I saw. The police chief is certainly aware, and we need to ensure that the mandates are followed. My expectation is that businesses and people that are not complying are fined. We have been nice, kind, polite, and understanding long enough. We are in a pandemic. And while we appreciate our visitors, we must clearly set the expectation of the behavior that we expect from people when they are in our city. This is not the place for people to come and have reckless abandon. This is not the place for people to leave from other hotspots across the country and to come here and feel foot and fancy free. When in Savannah, our expectation is that you do as Savannans do. Eat, drink, be merry, tour, and wear a mask. I specifically reject the position of some tourism officials that I've heard recently saying they have no role to play in this. Some foreign, crazy assertion that the tourism community can casually be engaged in this when they want to be. We are in this together. And if Savannah is going to get through this with minimal damage, it's going to take the help of everyone. Every hotel, every restaurant, every bar, every club, every tour, every business. And we want people to stop complaining and find ways to encourage people, encourage businesses to do better. Find ways to encourage businesses to help. An economy that is shut down hurts everyone. Everyone. And rather than talk about what we can't do, care enough to help. Care enough to help to explain how important this is for our future survival. How many infections, how many illnesses, how many hospitalizations, how many deaths will it take for people to stop this kind of irresponsible behavior? How much? Our hospitals and healthcare workers should not have to worry about being overwhelmed with COVID-19 patients in the next 2 weeks. As you know, we have regional hospital systems, and so therefore our neighbors all around us also send people here, which also overburden our hospital systems. Our businesses should not have to worry about possibly closing because someone exposed their staff or because cases are spiraling out of control in the coming weeks. We're all sick of dealing with COVID. We're always sick of it. But the virus does not care. And it's going to require a comprehensive full-court press in order for us to get past this. It is real. It is here. It is spreading rapidly. Our numbers are going up. And I'm saying to people, stop being selfish. Consider the impacts that your reckless decisions have on others. I'm again asking publicly, and will ask today in writing, for Governor Brian Kemp to do the right thing, do the smart thing, do the thing that is recommended across the world by healthcare professionals, and mandate masks for all Georgians in public and in private spaces. This bipolar personality that we have here in Georgia, the conflicting orders confuse people. And without a clear, unified direction, our numbers will continue to rise as people and businesses will treat masks as if they are optional accessories. And what I'm talking about is that right now, the Savannah mask ordinance applies to public spaces. People can do what they want to in private businesses. That doesn't make sense. So you're inside of a building, and then you come out, and you have to wear your mask, but you don't have to wear it when you're inside, when actually being inside exposes you more. We know that masks work. We know that masks slow down the transmission of the virus. We know that masks allow our businesses to stay open, and we do not need a study to tell us that. Some studies are impossible, or pretty much impossible, to conduct in the real world. This is likely the reason one would not find any wonderful randomized double-blinded placebo-controlled study evaluating the difference or the effectiveness of parachutes in preventing death or other bodily injuries by those jumping from airplanes. Do you need a study to tell you that using a parachute will save your life? However, numerous observations would lead most to conclude that one has a better chance of survival should one find oneself free falling from an airplane if one is wearing and properly deploys a parachute versus those who do not have the use of a parachute. Simply put, certainly it would not be 100% effective, and certainly one should have received proper training, but the odds of survival and or experiencing reduced injury is certainly improved with the use of a parachute. And that was an analogy given to me by a very, very smart man, and it makes sense. Chatham County's community transmission rate is increasing. Our index is increasing. This number tells us how widely COVID-19 is spreading using the number of newly confirmed cases in the last 14 days per 100,000 residents. We are up to 218 from 201 just a week ago. A month ago, we were at 177. Keep in mind now, anything over 100 is considered high community spread, and we're at 218. Local hospitalizations are increasing. The latest numbers show 70 COVID-19 patients in Chatham County hospitals compared to 48 1 week ago. We were so close to rolling out COVID vaccines in this country, and we're asking people, please, please, please stay at home when you can, wear a mask, wash your hands, and keep 6 feet between you and others until then. I do not want to be Mayor Grinch, but I must remind you that Christmas is more than a day. Christmas is a season, and we have to do things differently this season. It does not take away the significance of Christmas because we're doing it differently. We were still thankful Thanksgiving. It didn't change anything. We were just doing it differently. And I need us to do things differently this year. Avoid places where people gather. We know Black Friday was there. I want you to be careful of those places. Do not patronize, I'm not going to patronize any business that do not require a mask for your safety and for their safety. Our children are working there. Our mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers are working there. And if they don't care enough to require their patrons to wear a mask, then I'm not going to care enough to support them. That being said, please make it a point to support small local businesses this year. I am sure that they will appreciate your business. Local businesses mean local dollars spent locally and local jobs, and this is how we remain Savannah strong. So we need your help. And it's crucial that you do not forget to get your flu shot. You can make an appointment at your local health department or doctor's office, and most pharmacies are giving them at no cost. This week, I'm also reminded of the absolute need and the urgency for the city of Savannah to adopt an affordable housing plan. As we learned this week that Abercorn Apartments LLC sold Chatham Apartments to the Savannah College of Art and Design a year after purchasing it. Chatham Apartments formerly housed more than 200 low-income, elderly, and disabled individuals who rely on a federal housing voucher. This property was not owned by the city of Savannah, or the Housing Authority of Savannah, and admittedly this property was in dilapidated and in poor condition. Housing availability, affordability, and livability remains a strategic goal of this council, and I commend the members of the Housing Savannah Task Force for continuing their very important work. The City Council and I continue to work through the 2021 budget process. We will meet on this Thursday at 3 p.m. on Zoom for an additional budget workshop. You can watch it live on the city's Facebook, YouTube, or SGTV Channel 8. You can view the proposed budget at savannahga.gov/budget, savannahga.gov/budget. The deadline to register to vote in Georgia's January 5th runoff election is next Monday, December the 7th. You can register online at registertovote.sos.ga.gov, registertovote.sos.ga.gov. If you would like to request an absentee ballot for the runoff, there are several ways to do so. You can fill out the form online at ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov, ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov, or email voter@chathamcounty.org, voter@chathamcounty.org. You can fax your absentee ballot request to 912-790-1519, 912-790-1519, or mail it to voter registration, P.O. Box 13757, Savannah, Georgia 31416. Or you can request one in person at the Board of Registrar's office located at 1117 Eisenhower Drive, Suite E. If you've already received your absentee ballot and prefer to drop it off instead of mailing it, ballot drop boxes are now open across Chatham County. And I remind you and I encourage you to vote early, get it out the way. A couple of years ago, I finally remember it snowed in Chatham County in January. So let's not waste any time in that. You could also drop off your ballot in a secure location, in a secure election drop box at the Board of Elections office, the Savannah Civic Center, the Liberty City Community Center, the W.W. Law Community Center, Savannah State's T.A. Wright Stadium, the Southwest Chatham Library, the UGA Extension in Garden City, the Whitmarsh Island Chatham County Police Precinct, and the Pooler City Hall. Keep in mind that the Pooler City Hall is the closest drop box for our Savannah Highlands residents. And finally, as if COVID has not already taken enough from us in 2020, the annual ice skating at the Savannah Civic Center will not be happening this year. There's no safe way to do it. And I looked forward to falling several times on that skating floor. But I'm confident that we'll be back on ice together next winter. We are evaluating with our health professionals and will soon be making some decisions about our activities for the first quarter of 2021 to include the Martin Luther King Parade, St. Patrick's Day Parade, and other activities that occur within that time. That is my prepared remarks and rants this morning, and I will entertain any questions you may have.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
I just want to press you a little bit more about this weekend. I guess your enforcement team out there, what did they see, and were any actions taken, any citations written?
No, I mean, that was the issue. I mean, you know, I didn't see anything. Marty Johnston and I went down and looked. We lit the Christmas tree on Broughton Street. Purposely, it was not advertised. It was done by a local TV station. And we flipped the light. There was some people walking back and forth. And said, let's walk down and see what's going on River Street. And it was just, it was so, I mean, it was, you know, there was a choir, children's choir singing. And in fact, this was an advertised event. And I mean, it was people everywhere. You literally could not put your hands out like this and not touch people. You know, and I'm looking at the people. I took pictures, and I mean, you know, many people didn't have masks on. And I mean, it was refreshing to see them having a good time. It was disheartening to see the conditions under which they were doing it. To know that we potentially could have had a super spreader event that occurred. That was what was disheartening to me. And I called the city manager, and something has to change immediately. You want to say something, Mr. Manager? Come on. And so I told him I wanted an effective, immediate response. I wanted to be a pronounced response. I think we won a whole year of being nice, and people ridiculed us because, you know, I said we wanted to educate. It's time for action. And I refuse, if I can do anything about it, to have Savannah be one of those cities that is having the issues the other cities are having and shutting down. But if we have to go there, we'll go there. And we have to take our chances in court, we'll take them in court. But we have an opportunity to do something significant, and we're going to do that.
Can I ask one more later?
Well, yeah, why don't we, yeah, go ahead and then we'll have.
So you say it's time to take action. Do you think that we're going to see a significant amount of citations written in?
We better. I mean, again, I just think that, you know, you have the carrot and you have the stick. And we've issued enough carrots to have several carrot cakes. It's time now to do something more significant because we need people to understand very clearly how serious this is. And when you can't change behavior by encouragement, you have to change behavior by correction. Behavior unchallenged remains unchanged. And so for us, across this country, every 1 minute and 11 seconds, someone is dying of COVID. And that storm has not hit Savannah yet. And I'm trying to do all I can to ensure that we don't get there. And if that means making someone's pocket a little lighter, if that means revoking licenses from businesses that are not acting appropriately, if that means fining businesses that are not acting in the public's best interest, then so be it. Let me get the city manager. You questions for me or the city manager? Okay. Well, yeah, why don't we do, since you're there, if any questions about that, I'll answer those from you, and then the city manager.
You just said more citations. To whom are you going to write the citations to? Are you writing citations to persons out there not wearing masks, to businesses
Both.
having these events?
Both. I mean, again, you know, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you know, any other day, I would have just been, it felt like Christmas. I mean, people were down there, but I'm just looking at like, where are all these people coming from? And the fact of the matter is that the city owns the right of way. And that's why I'm saying, you know, it's really time for the governor to help us to stop this bipolar behavior that Georgia's exhibiting. Because literally, people can be in a private business and not wear a mask, but then come outside and have to wear a mask. It's a double standard, and it confuses people. And so people really don't know what to do. And so, you know, I think for the governor, it's politically safe. He's strongly encouraged. He's done everything but mandated. The White House, that he's so in tune with, has said, you know, mask work, wear a mask. I mean, I don't know what the issue is at this point. I mean, if, you know, he's certainly said that he's pro-business, and that he wants Georgia to be the best place in the country to do business. I want Georgia to be the best place in which to live healthy. And I think we can achieve both by wearing a mask.
Has anyone from the city talked to Richard Kessler?
I spoke to Richard Kessler that night. He was at the event, and I told him point blank how disturbed I was about what was going on. And I told him that this will not continue, and this will not happen again. Certainly we appreciate what he means to our community, what he's done for our community, but the rules have to apply for everyone. Because if he's able to do things on one end of it, then we have other people on the other end of River Street saying, well, they did it, what about us? And so, again, you know, in an emergency, the rules have to fairly apply to everyone.
What did Kessler say to you when you told him that?
Without getting into specifics, I mean, he felt that it was more of an issue of personal responsibility. I felt it was more of an issue of public safety. We certainly could choose to disagree within his establishment. He can choose to let masks happen or not wear them in accordance with the governor's order. I would hope that Richard, being a responsible business owner for the safety of the employees, the Savannahans that work there, would insist on masks within his establishment and in the areas of which Plant Riverside owns. But I know as far as the MLK Park and the city right-of-ways, we're going to actively enforce social distancing and mask wearing. Well, any questions for me and then city manager on this?
Just one more for you, Mr. Mayor. And so what happens if when you do write to the governor today, he says no?
Well, again, I don't feel I failed for trying. But, there'll come a day and there'll come a reckoning when history will look back and say, did we have to have the deaths that we had? Do we have to have the sicknesses that we had? Do we have the business closures that we had to have? All I could do is try my best. And, we know the masks work. And I know that people are confused. And, it's unfortunate that, people are in lines to get into businesses, having to wear a mask, and then get in there and they just take it off. Again, it's confusing, and it's duplicitous, and it puts people's lives in danger. We know this. So I just think we should do the right thing.
And after this weekend, do you think another stay-at-home order could be on the way for that?
I think a whole lot of things could be in order. Our numbers are rising. Again, 100, 218, and our numbers are rising. And so, those same tourism officials that have so much to say, when businesses are closed, I wonder if they'll say that wearing a mask was such a difficult concession to make during this time. Yes, sir. This for me?
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, with Vice President Pence coming this Friday to the Savannah Airport, does that fall under the jurisdiction of the mask ordinance either for the city or the county? And are you concerned about this being a potential spreader event?
The Savannah Airport is the city of Savannah's. It's within the city of Savannah, although it has its own commission. I will express my concerns to the folks out there, the commission today. My expectation is people coming onto Savannah properties will exercise due discretion. Certainly, the Vice President knows from the super spreader events that he has attended that masks are the way to go, and I hope that he will model correct behavior while within our gates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question. Has the police department been told to start issuing citations?
The chief is here. He's very clear about what enforcement means.
And just one thing, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned seeing the event down at Plant Riverside over the weekend. Were there no masks being worn indoors, or was it just a public right-of-way being had?
Well, I didn't go all the way indoors, but there were people indoors that did not have masks on. Again, going back to the bipolar behavior of Georgia, in private spaces, then it is up to the business to determine whether people wear a mask or not. The extension of that would also be areas that are immediately outside of Plant Riverside. However, the Riverwalk is the city's right-of-way, and masks are required. And again, that's why people are confused. For me, it's important that people wear masks. We just want people to be safe.
And, well, the reason why I asked, too, there were other events around town. I heard about one from a viewer in a restaurant in the Midtown area that had,
I heard.
100 people or more.
I heard.
That's what we were hearing. And we also heard that police were there, but there still wasn't any enforcement. I guess just why was that?
The chief is clear. The chief is clear. Again, I think that the holidays and fatigue have, just put people in some kind of way. And I understand that. But it's important for us to remain calm, remain vigilant, and not to lose sight of what the end goal is in this. And so the chief is aware. I heard about the events that you're talking about and events around town, and I'm expecting enforcement. I'm expecting these events to be broken up. We're not permitting any events, and I expect for us to address it accordingly.
What loopholes are there that allow you to get around the governor's emergency mandate?
There are no loopholes. The city of Savannah, since July 1st, has had a mask mandate. Only the courts can determine whether ours is unenforceable or anything like that. It remains in place. So there are no loopholes. Again, we're very clear about what public space is. We're very clear about what public right-of-ways are. And so we will address those issues in the public space, in the public right-of-ways. We're not looking for loopholes. That is why I'm asking the governor to evaluate the situation and make a wise decision based on the science. Don't do it based on perception. Don't do it based on feelings. Don't do it based on politics. Make it based on the science. That's the safest way to go. But in the public right-of-ways, and again, I've committed myself to be more around, and we can't tolerate this because again, our numbers are going up. We see the avalanche coming. The question: do we get out of the way, or do we stand and let it consume us? I say the latter. Well, I say the former. Excuse me. Let me hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I affirm the observations of the mayor. A number of us were out this weekend, and we can agree that the facts are there, that the behaviors, well, let's look at the positive side. There's a lot of people that were doing what they should do, and then there were a lot of people that weren't. So Chief Mentor and I and the mayor have conferred, and he's going to take steps this weekend. The non-police people, I'm going to be out this weekend, and we want to see how this will work in the future. I just want to express my concern about the tenor of your questions, which is, what is the mayor going to do about this? Well, he's clear that he's taken a leadership role, that this should not be another typical American divisiveness point. I'm asking you, will you go to your folks and throughout this weekend do what we do in Savannah, is to have celebrations, have events, and to do those, which they depend upon personal cooperation. They depend upon a spirit of not just cooperation, have a good time, but do it in a way that doesn't cause harm. That's part of our tradition. The police are not heavy-handed. That's not our role. So I'm asking you to do as the mayor asked, and ask for people to have a good time, but cooperate with us. Because we have a lot of resources, but there's not enough resources to control everybody's behavior in all of our public spaces. So we commit ourselves to enforce, but also we ask for cooperation. Because how many events have we had? In the old days, we'd have hundreds of arrests at some of these events. Now we have very few because we get cooperation. So I think that the mayor, I've affirmed what he has had to say. I've committed our staff resources to do what he's asked us to do. And we have to support him because there's so many leaders at the state and national level that are making it a divisive issue. I'll just conclude with that. Our budget workshop, we reviewed our COVID responses. The research that I did in 1919, this country had 500,000 or 600,000 deaths with a pandemic. We're well on the way to 300,000, and this is 100 years later, and we have just a vast array of emergency room capacity and ventilators and all sorts of, and yet we're well on our way to having hundreds of thousands of deaths 100 years later. Have we learned anything or not? I'm beginning to wonder. Mayor, I affirm you, and I think we'll do our level best to go out and enforce, but ask for cooperation at the same time. Thank you, sir.
And to that end, you have been putting that message out, your message for months, yet the numbers continue to go on. And that's why we ask.
No, that's fine. I mean, But I appreciate the city manager. I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're united as a government. The other thing that has been very interesting to me is that, and the city manager and I and the chief talked about it, is that Savannah is a different place at night and on weekends than it is during the day. And we need to fashion our government to take that into account. There need to be people in charge. There need to be people who are on the ground, who are looking. So expect, even beyond this, a much more intentional response from the city as it relates to proactively just being in the moment. Again, I come downtown because I want to see it for myself. And then when you see it and you feel it, it's a whole different type of experience. And so when I was downtown this weekend and I saw it and I felt it, and the city manager saw it for himself and the police chief saw it for himself, we recognized that this was a dangerous situation. And although people want to and get into the festiveness of the holiday season, at the same time, we have to be able to do that in a safe way. And my conclusion is, for the things I went to, for the most part, on Friday and Saturday, were not safe.
I do want to ask you something that you mentioned earlier about the shadow apartments.
Yes.
We did have a chance to speak with a woman yesterday, one of 30 elderly and disabled that were forced out at the end of October ahead of the sale to Savannah Colorado Design. Many are now living in extended stay hotels in the Savannah area, waiting on apartments, some temporarily living with families, and we actually, again, spoke to a woman yesterday about that. She's running out of money, can't afford to pay that weekly motel rent where she's been put. Is the city aware of those predicaments that those people are up against, and others around the city waiting on that affordable housing? What's your reaction to that? What can be done? What resources do we have there?
Well, again, I think that we have to have, right now, and one of the things I campaigned on was that Savannah did not have an affordable housing plan, which meant that things just happened. We were victims to the market. And essentially, that's what happened in this case. I mean, SCAD has a strong strategic plan. They're looking for housing for their students. This is an opportunity for them to provide housing for their students. So I'm not mad with them for doing that. They made a business decision. On the other end of it is that, and I don't think it's all the city of Savannah, it's really partners to include the county and other municipalities, is that we have to be able to ensure, as a beloved community, that we are creating opportunities for people to be. And that is to be safe, to be healthy, to have a roof over their heads. The policy work of the Housing Savannah Task Force is critically important, hence why we have made decisions to view every property that we have left on our register, every large property, from an affordable housing lens. Part of the issue, I believe, that SCAD probably went for this property was because the city decided not to sell the Wedge property, which SCAD was interested in for student housing. So we recognize, for every action there is a consequence. This was it was a good property. It was on a bus line. It was close to downtown. But we have to recognize that in the midst of our prosperity, there are people that are still not doing okay. And so I think that we have a council that is in tune to that, that is willing to do what we can to help to address that. But again, the issue for us is housing stock. It is how do we address issues of housing stock? How do we address monies coming from the federal and state governments to address the everyday needs that people have? I think, again, this council took the aggressive, unprecedented step. Again, 80% of our CARES money went to help people, and some of that money is still available for some of those people who need it, and we encourage them to go to United Way to try to get those funds. Again, it's being between a rock and a rock. We're responsible for them. We feel responsible for them. We're going to do all we can with them, but we also recognize that we don't do it alone.
If I just ask, I just need you to clarify these numbers. You talked about 218 versus 201 versus 177. You're talking about deaths in Chatham County?
No, that was a community transmission index.
Okay.
Let me check to make sure. I believe it is. And again, the 100 number was the number that was set as the threshold, the low threshold. And as you can see, we are quickly moving up that ladder. Yeah, our community transmission index. So we were 201 a week ago. We're 218 now. A month ago, we were 177. So in a month, we went from 177 to 218. Remember, 100, anything over 100 is considered high community spread. So at 218, I think it's an extensive community spread. Emma? They asked all the good questions today?